From fabulous Las Vegas, Nevada, this is Pod Therapy. Real people, real problems, and real therapists. You can submit your questions anonymously at podtherapy.net or email us at podtherapyguys@gmail.com. All right, America, it's that time of year, the time we've all been waiting for, a time that separates those courageous souls from the faint of heart, a time that rewards ingenuity and punishes those who take the easy way out. Of all those who dream of reaching the top, only one with guts and hard-won determination will be able to take their place at the top of the podium. I'm talking, of course, about Cub Scouts Pinewood Derby. And now, broadcasting from the churn, that guy's Dr. Jim Jobin. I'm Nick Tangeman. It's time for some Pod Therapy.
Dude, it's harder to win that thing than it is the Oscars. You know, I'd like to see some of these guys build a damn Pinewood Derby car. It's hard. It's really hard.
No, and this is your mistake.
Yeah.
I'd like to see some of these guys do it. It's not supposed to be the dads. It's not supposed to be the guys. It's supposed to be the kids.
Guess
and that's
what?
the problem
it's
that I've had.
It's always the dads.
It is not.
Always the dads.
Maybe now.
You literally
maybe
built
now.
my son's car last year.
Yeah.
What are you talking about? Get off your pedestal. You built it in your office.
And
I was there.
Point of order. That's not the dad.
Exactly. Okay.
Well,
and
actually,
friend of the dad.
Until we get the 23andMe results, we don't know. I mean, you know, I'm just saying, my son has, like, you know, a beard. He wears thick rimmed black glasses. It's really weird. He's into hockey.
You have a beard and are currently wearing thick rimmed black glasses.
I know, but my son's athletic, and he ain't from me.
Uh-huh.
Something's going on. He's like, Dad, we go outside. I'm like, who the hell's child are you? We don't go outside in this family.
Yeah. So
Sit down and play video
year,
games.
this year, I really want to challenge you.
Okay, to build it myself.
No. to work with him.
Oh, I'm going to
And-
include him. I'm going to do that. He's going to paint it. He painted it.
No, that's not.
Yeah,
that's
that counts,
not.
man.
That's not. No, it doesn't. No, it doesn't.
So we should probably tell the listeners what the hell we're even talking about.
Okay. All right. Go ahead.
So my son's a Cub Scout. And every year, the Cub Scouts do this thing called a Pinewood Derby. And they get these little blocks of pine wood that are kind of already cut and ready for, like, you know, wheels and things like that. And the kids are supposed to, like, carve them up into different shapes and get them, you know, they can put little weights on them, they put their wheels on them, they can paint them, and then there's, like, a big ramp that's, like, all regulation size, and the boys get to put their cars on the ramp, and they get to race against each other in heats. And the winner gets, you know, acknowledged, and they get a special badge and all this stuff. Well, it's a joke because these are Cub Scouts. They only go up to 5th grade. So the dads always build this stuff. Well, last year is my first year of my kids in Cub Scouts. I don't know how to do this. So I go grab Nick. At the time we were in the same building. I go over to his office. I slap down this, like, kit, and I'm like, build me a car. And at first he, like, lectures me, and he's like, you know, this violates the spirit of the thing. You know, no. But, like, I just left it on his desk. Come back an hour later, it's built.
Well, it's that or do my paperwork.
Yeah, and he's like, you know, give me that thing. He starts looking at it, he's like,
well, see, this is.
well, I'll tell you what's wrong right now. This axle's a piece of crap.
Well, all you have to do is let me see you work on it,
And then
I'll
take
be
it.
like, just give it to me.
Just give me the stupid thing.
It's
Yeah.
wrong.
This
He
is
should be
probably
building
how
it
Laura
himself.
gets things done at the house. She's like, you know, will you build that shelf? Yeah, I'll get to it when I can. And then she just opens the box. And well, no.
Yeah.
All right, I'll do it.
Pretty much.
Just give me that damn thing.
Pretty much.
So we are going to invite our listeners. If you're on our Patreon, you already know this, but we are hosting the first annual Pod Therapy Pinewood Derby, because Nick's going to help me build my son's car anyway. So we thought, let's just make a fun thing of it. So in March, I'm going to build my own car. My son and I are building a car. And then you're going to build your own car. And any of our listeners who want to build their own car can send them in to us, and we will race it on the Boy Scout track. And you can try to beat Nick and I.
I'll do you even one better. I'm not even going to build a new one. I will use the one that I built when I was his age.
No, you have to build a new one.
No, I'm going to take a car that's 27 years old.
Oh, don't act
and I'm
like
gonna
that
race
matters.
It.
Don't
It
act
does.
like, oh, look, it rusts on the lot.
No.
Come on. Come on.
I put my...
I'm just going to take out my classic muscle car that I
worked
made as a Eagle Scout.
I worked really hard on that.
Yeah, no shit. You got an Eagle Scout badge for it. Don't
No,
put that against
not for the car.
My son is 9.
This was years later.
I should not be having to face off against 18-year-old Nick. That's not fair.
It wasn't even 8. We didn't do that at 18. I was his age. This is a Cub Scout thing.
You still have your car?
Yes, I still have my car.
Pretty impressive, Nick.
Yeah.
That's really cool. Is it bronzed on
And
your
I
mom's
was how
mantle?
old is he? What, 5th grade?
He's no, he's in 3rd grade.
Okay.
Yeah.
See,
so you
when-
built it at 5th grade.
No, I think I was probably 4th grade when I did it.
Okay, sure you weren't a kindergartner, Nick, because it seems to be dialed
Maybe.
back.
Whatever.
Seems to keep following its way down.
Either way,
Okay.
I didn't have a kit.
Okay.
Okay.
You did it.
I chopped down the tree that we
Jesus.
used to build that car.
Jesus.
It was my little hands on the bandsaw.
Jacob, you're not believing. Oh, bandsaw!
I did.
You have terrible parents. Here you go, Nicky. Go be a man.
Okay, I didn't
Here's
cut-
an axe and a bottle of gin. Go figure it out like I did.
I did not cut down the tree, but I did cut it. Like I had to use a bandsaw.
You didn't cut down the tree.
I
You
didn't.
said
That was
you
exaggerating.
did.
That was exaggerating, but I did use the bandsaw. And I did all of that, and I cut it, and I shaped it, and I did everything.
Listen, George Washington.
If you were a 7-year-old or whatever using a bandsaw, you have terrible parents.
Bob Vila Tangman over here. That's right.
all 10 fingers.
Yeah. Well, let's see. Drop
See the
trowel.
other appendages.
Yeah, let's drop trowel. Let's find out what else happened. Let's ask
right.
Laura how that turned out.
So yes, patrons.
Submit your Pinewood Derby car,
Yeah.
and we will race you.
When are we doing this?
It's going to be in March. So all the rules
Okay.
are up on the Patreon. If you type in Pinewood Derby, you'll find it. And so, yeah, it's on there like the rules as far as how much it has to weigh and what you're allowed to use and when you've got to mail it in to us. And if you're going to participate, just let us know, and then we'll give you a mailing address. You could send us your car. So, but yeah, we will definitely be filming the results. It'll all be available on our Patreon in March. It's going to be a lot of fun.
Yeah.
So Pinewood Derby, man, screw the Oscars. This is what matters. But let's do some therapy.
All right,
What are
let's
we
do it.
launching off with this
So
time?
we're going to do something a little bit different today.
Thank God.
I know.
We got to start doing something different. These guys ain't going to hang in here for another year.
You've already put up with enough.
Suffered enough.
No, so I decided, we had some good success when we did the goal setting thing.
Yeah.
And we had talked about this a while back. We want to do some stuff that, some homework things that we can give our listeners to actually start practicing and
techniques.
doing.
Yeah.
Techniques. So this is going to be kind of our first segment, our first dipping our toe into this. And today we're going to talk about coping skills.
Yeah.
So,
Coping skills.
I've put together a list of categories.
We've put together a list.
We've put together a list.
I helped.
Yeah, you sure did.
I put together a list.
Jacob has put together a list.
You know what? Matt and Paul helped. I feel like it's a royal we.
You know what? Everybody but Nick put together a list of categories of effective coping skills. And the reason why I always like to do this when I was doing groups was because when we talk about coping skills, everybody seems to have the same few coping skills.
Right.
And really, most of them fall into only one category.
Well, at a rehab, yeah. Drugs. What do you do when you're stressed? Dope. All right.
So what I wanted to do is break this down and to kind of get people to start
Right.
thinking a little bit outside of the box and start utilizing some new coping skills. So as we go through these are categories of coping skills. I want you to kind of think about how you can start implementing some of these into your life, and I want you to practice some of them and give us some feedback.
Yeah.
Try some of these out. Hit us up on Twitter or Facebook or wherever we're on, and let us know
Adult
whether or
Friend
not they
Finder,
work.
wherever
Yeah.
we're at.
Yep, all of those. FarmersOnly.com.
Farmers Only. Yeah, we have a lot of profiles. We're just
Yeah.
trying to make sure that everybody can get to us.
At this point, it's impossible to miss us.
Yeah. Type in Pod Therapy on literally whatever device you're
Yeah.
on right now, and you'll find us.
So, first one, self-soothing. All right, so this one is really interesting. A lot of people don't think about this, but have you ever noticed, Jim, how little kids, when they are stressed out about something, they'll rock back and forth?
Yeah. Yeah.
Right? And it's really interesting because it's the same thing that happens. Like you've had 2 kids,
Yeah,
right? When
that I
you
know
want
of.
them to,
Yeah.
that we're aware of.
Yeah.
When you want them to go to sleep,
Yeah.
or your
rock 'em.
wife, you rock them.
Yeah.
Right. This is a self-soothing movement.
Right.
There's a
Yeah.
lot of these movements that can be self-soothing, and actually, what's happening is it's fluid in your inner ear
Okay.
that rocks back and forth.
Okay.
And it's that movement that creates a calming effect.
So
right?
this category of coping skill is anything that's sort of like a physicality
Yes.
soothing effect.
Yes.
Okay.
Right. So rocking back and forth, and that swinging motion we continue to do as we get older.
Right.
When you're old and you're sitting on a porch swing,
Right.
you're doing the same thing. So it's that same movement. There are other self-soothing activities that people will do sometimes. Like good example would be like the earlobes, right? Kind of
Rubbing
rubbing
your
the
ears.
earlobes, things like that. So. for our listeners, what I would recommend you do is try to find something that's some kind of physical, self-soothing thing that you can do.
Yeah, and see, I'm glad you brought that up, because a lot of times whenever people hear about coping skills, they assume it's going to be a big thing, right?
Right.
But what you're pointing out with this very first category is, it doesn't have to be big. It can just be something in the moment that allows you to sort of satisfy the urge to mitigate the emotion, right? So you're
Yes.
feeling something hard, feeling something difficult, feeling something distressing. One thing you can do is self-soothing physically. And so that could be pulling off your shoes, rubbing your feet. That could be putting your fingers up on your ears and just rubbing your earlobes. That could be brushing your hair. It could be, you know what one of my very favorite physical self-soothings is? I know it's not the one you're thinking.
Oh, okay. All right.
It's not the one you're thinking.
I'll get that out of my head.
It's definitely PG. I go get one of those fine-tooth combs at like a beauty salon, and I brush my beard.
Yes.
Brushing your beard. All three of us have beards. You guys know what I'm talking about, right? You get a fine-tooth comb, you dig into that bad boy, go all day, man. Yeah, my wife will come in the room. She's like, "What are you doing?" I'm like, "Putting it under my chair." Nothing. Nothing.
Don't worry about it.
Studying.
The second category is the one that it's the most commonly used, most commonly thought of, and that's distraction.
Yeah.
Right? So this could include anything that gets your mind on something else. So most common examples would be like reading a book, puzzles, movies, music, so on and so forth.
So this also works really well for anxiety. Sometimes when people have like a catastrophizing kind of distortion where they think, what if? Two things that I'll have them do is, one, I'll have them download the Wikipedia app, and you can click a button on Wikipedia that's random article. And we have a rule, like if you're going through something, you have to pull that out, you have to hit random article, you have to learn something. Like right there, and just read about whatever's going on, because it's distracting.
Right.
Our brains don't have a great ability to multitask. It's like we only have one camera in there, and so it can only like kind of look at one thought at a time. And so if you can pull something else in front of that camera, it'll sort of take up the space, and it will like distract you from whatever's unpleasant.
Exactly. Yeah. So that's the most common, like we said. So I'm not going to go into a whole lot of detail. Here's the number 3 is a good one. This is called opposite action. So it's the opposite of whatever your impulse is, and something that is consistent with positive emotions. Okay, so think of things that are that you are typically doing when you're in that desired emotional state, whatever that desired emotional state that is that you're looking for. So for most people, let's just say happiness.
Okay.
Okay. So what you do is you imagine, when I'm happy, what are the things that I'm doing?
Right.
So then when you're stressed, then you've got those things that you go to. So instead of looking at it like, when I'm happy, I do X, Y, and Z.
Yeah.
You flip it around. So when I do X, Y, and Z, I'm happy. So you have a list of things that you can never do while frustrated.
Yeah, right.
So like
they don't fit. Yeah.
Right. So for me, it's always playing with my dogs.
Yeah.
Okay, like I can't be upset or angry while playing with my dogs.
So if you're feeling lonely or upset, you can do the opposite action. The opposite of this emotion is happy. What actions go with happy? Oh, my dogs. Okay, I'm going to go play with my dogs, and we'll see what happens.
Exactly.
That's a great coping skill.
Yeah.
I love that.
So yeah, think of those things that you always seem to be doing, and that you can't imagine yourself doing in any other emotional state other than happiness.
I really like that. And that's nice because it doesn't require you to like Google a list of coping skills and like come up with ideas. It kind of starts with looking at your own life and asking what things were happening when. And now write those down. Put those in a memo pad. That's your go-to list, and do those.
Right.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
I really like that.
Yeah, there's 2 simple rules that you can live by that will help you out tremendously. One is, if it doesn't work, stop doing it. 2, if it does work, do it more often.
Do more of that.
And this is number 2, right? It seems very simple, but to our listeners, this is where you're going to run into a problem, because you're not going to want to do the behavior.
Yeah, you're not
when
in the
you're
mood
in
to
the
do
negative
it.
mood.
Right.
Like for me, playing guitar, I can never play guitar upset or angry. Like I just get into a good mood.
Well, you obviously don't play metal.
I don't play.
The only way to play metal.
But when I'm upset or when I'm frustrated about something, playing guitar is not anything that even interests me.
Right. Yeah,
so I have to kind of force myself.
Start.
I'm just going to go in there. I'm just going to go in my music room. I'm just going to pick up my guitar.
Yeah. I agree with that.
And then
it goes back to the
small
CBT
steps.
triangle, right? That we only have control. You can grab any corner of the triangle and affect the other two. And in this case, you're leading with the behavior, and it will affect the emotion, and it will affect the thoughts.
Exactly.
I love that one.
Yep. What are we on? Number 4, emotional awareness. So this is another one that seems kind of obvious, but it's one of the things that people really genuinely struggle with.
Yeah, right.
And this is just really becoming aware of how we are feeling emotionally.
Right.
One of the challenges that I always had working in groups is when I would ask somebody to identify, how are you feeling right now? How are you feeling?
Yeah, they only know 2 words.
Right. And most of the time when they answer that question, they're not actually answering the question about how they feel.
Mm-hmm.
They're answering their questions about what are they thinking.
Right.
You know? And it becomes really difficult to turn off that thought and focus on, just emotionally. What are you feeling? So I actually have a feelings chart.
Yeah.
Yeah, and it breaks it down because it sometimes...
You're talking about the wheel?
Yeah, the
wheel.
wheel.
Oh, God. Everybody Google right now emotions wheel.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's great. I know exactly what you're talking about.
Yeah, we always called it the wheel of feel.
Yeah. Yeah.
So essentially what
Not
you do
to be confused with that swingers club that you go to.
No, that's a different one.
That's a different thing.
Totally different thing. But what it is you identify an emotion in the center, what best describes your current emotion.
Right.
And then you go to the next outer ring and it breaks it down even more
finely tuned
specifically.
Words.
And then
so
there's
the
a
first
third ring.
The first ring might say sadness.
Right.
And then inside of sadness, it'll show like 4 breakdowns, and it might be distraught, despair, disorienting or whatever, just disappointed. Well, then inside of those, it will further delineate and say, okay, so inside of disappointed, there's let down, there's disappointed in self. And so it'll kind of like break it down even further and further. But emotional vocabulary, gosh, it's something we don't think about, but just being able to say what you feel in a journal to another person, to your therapist, to yourself, is a coping skill.
Yeah.
Just by looking at it.
Yeah. And not only that, but it gives you direction. I think that's the thing that people struggle with the most is they, like, this is how I feel. Okay, I've identified it. What good is this?
Yes.
What good is it to know this information?
That's awesome.
But it actually does give you some kind of direction. If you can pinpoint it to an exact degree, a specific emotion, it can give you direction on how to address it.
I love it.
Next one, mindfulness. And within mindfulness, I include grounding techniques.
Yeah.
This is like one of my favorite things to do with people, especially people with an anxiety disorder or sometimes even with PTSD.
Yes.
Grounding techniques can be amazingly effective. Sometimes what happens when we get into heavy anxiety or PTSD, what happens is our mind kind of tends to go off in different directions, right? And grounding technique is meant to bring you back down into the here and now. It's anything that will, in effect, put your feet back on the ground.
Yes.
Right? So simple things that you can do, I've used this one before a lot with people, is if they respond to things tactilely, like touching things, take a rock and put it in your non-dominant hand.
Right.
And really focus on all the intricacies of the rock, the different cracks.
Language it. Describe what you're touching. Describe how it feels. Its temperature. Its texture. Its weight.
Yeah.
But so that comes back to the 5 senses thing that we'll do as a grounding technique.
Go explain that.
Yeah. So let's just do it right now. So listener, I want you to close your eyes.
Unless you're driving.
Unless you're driving. No, you know what? Just do it anyway.
Yeah.
Trust me, this is important.
This is a trust exercise.
This is a trust fall. I want you to push your right foot down as hard as you can. So, okay, listener, here's what I want you to do. So I want you to close your eyes. Without looking around, I want to first focus on the sound, right? So if you're sitting in an open room, I'll ask you, what do you hear? And then I'll be quiet, and I'll ask you to describe one by one. Oh, I hear the air conditioning going off. I hear the pitter-patter of my dog down the tile floor down the road. I hear a car zooming by. I hear a breeze outside. I hear my heart beating. Okay, good. Then we'll say, okay, I want you to smell now. Tell me about the scent of the room. Tell me about I smell my cologne. I smell some of the must smell because it rained yesterday. I smell some of that in the air. I smell the heater just came on. I can smell that. Okay, good. And then we'll do the same thing with taste. What do you remember as your most recent flavor? Because a lot of times we don't have a taste right now. Oh, last thing I had was coffee, and I remember it had some hazel in it. It had some almond in it, and I liked that. And, okay, so there was that. It was warm, it had a tone to it. Same thing. So we go one by one through the senses with sight, same thing, and feel. When it comes to feel, I usually ask you to feel your body. Where do you feel yourself in the furniture that you're in?
Right.
How sturdy does it feel to you? Are your feet planted? Do you feel your clothing on your skin? Do you feel what its texture is? Take your hand and graze your face, graze your hair. Describe what you're feeling. And then last is sight, because that's the most dominant. And then you say, look around the room and just tell me what you see around you. What's the light tone? What are the color schemes? Notice your day, notice yourself. And what we're doing is grounding you.
Yes.
We're getting you away from all the distracting invisible thoughts that are racing through your head and getting you inward to the here, the now, the present, which we call mindfulness.
Exactly. I've even done this with folks where we imagine being someplace else.
Yes. Oh, calm, safe place? Yeah. Calm, safe place is really powerful.
Yeah, whenever you imagine yourself, think of someplace maybe from your childhood that you always felt safe, or someplace that you just feel really calm and relaxed. I always imagine myself, the beach. Someplace in the Caribbean, and go through each one of those. What do I smell? I smell
a future
sunscreen,
episode during the technique bit, we'll do some of these. We'll do light stream, we'll do calm, safe place, and we'll teach people some of these techniques. But mindfulness definitely is one of the big coping skills.
Next one, accessing your higher self.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
This is a good one.
This one is a good one.
I like this one.
Yeah.
Essentially what this is saying is helping someone else with something.
Right.
And it actually is a very effective coping skill, especially if we're talking about with depression or anything that we're kind of starting to feel down or frustrated. Getting out of ourself and helping someone else with a project can be very beneficial. It kind of gives you some kind of something that you're working towards. It gives you a little bit of satisfaction knowing that you're helping somebody else.
You can't solve your problem, go solve somebody else's.
Right.
What would be helpful right now?
And
build this shelf, whatever. Go do that.
When we were working at a rehab, this was very important. Is a big part of our program is finding some way that they can give back, getting them out into the community and doing something for somebody else.
Yes.
And it was very effective.
Yeah, that's huge. That's a really good one.
And lastly, the last thing you want to make sure you do is have a crisis plan. So this is a list of supports and resources, people that you can contact. So this is kind of your 911 list. So if you've tried all these other coping skills and none of them seem to be working or in effect, you've got something else that you can turn to. So here's kind of the homework assignment that I want you guys to try. I want you to start looking at your feelings, whether it be anxiousness, sadness, or whatever, on a scale of 0 to 10. 10 being very extreme. That's where we want to get away from. And we want you to be down at a more manageable level. We don't have to shoot for 0.
No.
Identify what your manageability zone is. Yeah. So maybe for me, that's anywhere from a 3 to a 5. That's kind of my comfort zone.
Yeah.
And start practicing rating yourself on that scale of where you feel like you're at.
Yeah.
And then once you've established a baseline, start using some of these different techniques. So do some of these techniques like the grounding technique that Jim was talking about going through the 5 senses. So do a pre and a post.
Yes.
Pre, I find myself I'm at about a 6.5. After doing this, maybe I'm at a 4.
Yeah, or maybe just a 6. But I came off 0.5.
Yeah.
Yes.
And start practicing some of these and get a sense of which of these are going to be effective for you, because they're not all going to work.
Yeah, and of the list that Nick gave you, try them all. And one of the things you can be doing for homework too is give them stars. So you could be giving them, 1 to 5 stars. How effective was that technique for you? And each person's different. Each person has a signature blend of coping skills. Try yours to discover what your best ones are.
Yeah,
that's
give it a shot. Let us know how it goes.
Yep.
I'm interested to see whether or not you guys found this helpful, and if we can continue to work
Write in, tell us which ones worked for you, and if you don't do your homework, you will fail and you will have to repeat this episode. So you better get on it.
All right, well, we're going to take a quick break, and when we come back, we discuss long-distance relationships. You're listening to Pod Therapy.
This week's Theraproducer sponsor is Robert Brownie Jr. Mint. Robert is an English international cricketer. A batting all-rounder, he is a left-handed batsman and a right-arm off-spinner who played county cricket for Warwickshire before moving to Worcestershire after the 2006 season. As of 2017, Robert represents England in all formats of the game. He won Warwickshire's NBC Dennis Compton's Award in both 2004 and 2005.
What? I didn't know. 2
And
years?
Worcestershire's NBC Dennis Compton Award in 2009.
Amazing.
His off-spin is marked by a strongly spun off-break and a well-concealed arm ball. He was named one of Cricketers of the Year in 2015's Wisden Cricketers Almanac. If you'd like to make the show possible, you can go to www.patreon.com/therapy and sign up. Again, that's patreon.com/therapy. We're back. You're listening to Pod Therapy, and our next question is about long-distance relationships. Hello, Dr. Jim and Mr. Nick. As you know, I got my well-deserved reward after a long and difficult year and spent the holidays with my boyfriend in cold Indiana. By now, his identity is no longer a secret. We had an awesome time together. I traveled abroad for the first time, all by myself, and met other Hoosier scoops, all smiles and rainbows. Oh, this is Manu from Brazil.
It is.
Yeah,
yes.
This is Manu from Brazil, by the way.
The secret is out. We know who she's dating. She is dating the governor of Indiana.
Yeah,
So
former governor of Indiana,
we don't
Mike
have to
Pence.
keep it a secret
Yeah.
anymore.
All right, but when the clock strikes midnight, we all know the dream must come to an end. In my case, I had to get on a plane and fly for more than 15 hours until I was back home. Well, actually, this is where it starts to get weird. Calling the place I'm living now home sounds wrong and uncomfortable. But Rio is no longer home for me. It feels even more like Barstow than it did before. Side note, when I traveled through Barstow recently, I actually got an actual postcard from Barstow. I actually have it in my thing here. Here it is.
Nice.
And look what I wrote on the back. Read it for the listeners.
Manuela, this place fucking blows. XOXO Jim.
I took a picture of it and sent it to her. She got a kick out of it.
That is Barstow.
Yeah. In an earlier episode, we told her that being stuck in life is a Barstow problem. Yeah. Back to her letter. It's like missing a limb that I've never had before, and I can only acknowledge its existence by the fact that it's now absent. I know long-distance relationships are not uncommon anymore. But when it requires a visa of a country whose commander-in-chief wants to build a wall, it's an entirely different level of commitment. The bottom line is, I'm ready. I have no idea what it means to move to another country and start a new life, but that does not scare me at all. What scares me right now is still being here, in this town I hate, in this job I can barely stand, away from my best friend. If everything goes right, I should be back in the U.S. in a few months, this time to stay for at least a few years. But until then, what do I do? How do I accept this pain and the fact that sometimes I will start crying from something as simple as a new liquid soap smelling just like his car? Is this a very mild form of grief? It was physically hard to unpack, and I felt my brain fighting the process of coming back to the routine like it was preventing me from breaking the connection with him. I've always been an outsider here, but now this feeling of being off won't go away. Aside from planning carefully and maintaining the patience, is there anything else we can do to cope with the separation? Do you think that couples forced to be separated for long periods of time should worry about their mental health? Also, can you explain what it's like psychologically to be kept apart from the person you love against your will? What type of emotional distress can this be compared to? Triple hug, Manu.
Thank you for the letter. That was good. As far as long distance relationships are very difficult. To answer the question, should they worry about mental health issues? I don't think so.
No,
I think
not necessarily.
It's just stress on the relationship. But
yeah.
I guess one thing I would explain and kind of go back to something that I've talked about in the past, which is about managing expectations.
Yes.
I think that's going to be very important. Long distance relationships can be very difficult, but they can work. Mm-hmm. Depending on, I guess, as long as there's kind of some kind of end in sight, right? You're not going to be doing this for the rest of your lives. Right. I mean, if you look at it as something that is a temporary inconvenience and something that you can kind of work around, you manage those expectations, it's going to be difficult.
Right.
But I definitely doable.
I like that she used the word grieving. I feel like that really is the right word to capture that initial feeling of like almost this punctuated temporary form of grieving. It is that, right? It is the loss of a relationship, and the loss of any significant relationship, any significant amount of happy in our lives. The natural psychological response is the grieving, right? The grieving system that just enacts. So that acute emotional pain that feels like death almost, that's not exaggerated. It does pass, but that is essentially acute grieving.
Yeah, and it's really not even the loss of the relationship so much as the loss of the convenience of the relationship.
It's a loss of the version of the relationship, right? Because like if I go to Mars, you know, like you can still talk to me on a 45-minute delay, you know, but there is a loss of what we had, the version of it. And that's the interesting thing about grieving, I think a lot of times we don't know, is we think in order for grieving to be valid, somebody has to have died or we have to have lost the job. All it is a significant change in a person's life beyond their ability to sort of emotionally reconcile in the moment. That's grieving.
Mm-hmm.
And then the body and mind just kind of get into like that chain reaction of being stuck. It's emotional. It's physical pain, you know, it's just sad, you know, and to answer that question for her, what can this be compared to? It's like death. It's like the death of somebody, or it's like the significant loss of something or the strong adaptation of something. It's acute. It does pass. It's not as enduring as those things because you have a baseline to return to because you started this as a long distance relationship. So you do know how to come back to it. But you miss what you had.
Yeah, definitely. You know, as far as some tips moving forward, you know, in addition to, like I said, managing your expectations, I think one thing, let's also point out something positive that happened here, which is that you got to kind of test that water first.
Yes,
like you didn't just up and move from Brazil to the U.S.
Right. The worst thing would have been you get back to Rio and you're like, thank God I'm back here. Indiana sucks.
Or even worse, like if she would have just moved there directly and having never actually visited.
All at one. Right.
Yeah, that could have been really terrible.
Yeah.
So this, I guess, what I would encourage you to do is look at this as feedback. This is all this is.
It's data.
This is data, right?
Mm-hmm.
So you went there, you had a great time, you really enjoyed it, you connected with some people, you met some new folks, you came back and you're not feeling comfortable, you're not feeling like you're in your home anymore.
Right.
That's just data. That's all that is. This is information. Okay. So you can use this data to, you know, make decisions. How are you going to move forward? And it sounds like you have a long-term plan of coming to the U.S.
Yeah.
So I guess I would really just kind of encourage you to take, you know, looking at everything as being temporary. Yeah, this is a temporary inconvenience.
Yes.
But my long-term goal is to do blank, is to, you know, to move to Indiana or move to wherever.
Right.
And here are some small steps that I'm going to do in the meantime.
Yeah, that goes back to our Barstow advice that we've given her, which is like when you're in Barstow, if you lose track of where you're heading, you can, you know, malfunction and come to believe falsely that you're going to stay in Barstow, which nobody does. Like, except there's probably somebody that lives in Barstow. I've
Surely
never met
none of
that
our
person.
listeners.
As Las Vegans, I think that we get that, you know, but so keep the end in mind, keep the destination in mind, hold that in your mind, look at this not as a loss, but as a gain. The truth is you got to experiment with this. It was a positive trip. You now have an idea of what's ahead of you. You know what you're looking forward to. You've been able to taste it. And that is valuable, even if you now long for it because it was so good, you want to return to that. You have a plan. You're moving forward. Tell yourself that truth. I think that goes a long way to mitigate some of this. And remember, it needs to pass through you.
Right.
Grieving is something that passes through you. And a lot of times when Nick and I talk to people that are saying, how can I make this pain go away? Unfortunately, we have to kind of visit with them and say, what we're going to do instead is we're going to allow this to pass through you. Kind of like cold air. Your body temperature is 98.5 degrees. But if I put you in a cold environment, we all do the same thing. We clench so that we don't feel the cold. But we still are cold, and now our body is like squeezing all the blood out of its muscles, and we actually end up getting colder. You should relax and just let it pass through you. And that's kind of what we do with grieving. We relax, let your guard down, let this pain pass through you, remind yourself that it's temporary, tell yourself the truth, and that will make it all much easier to manage. It must be felt. But that only accentuates the high that will happen whenever you return. Mm-hmm. It's going to be exciting stuff. And I'm glad you got to come out, you know. Viva America. And don't worry about Trump. There's no wall near Indiana.
And
You're
you're going to fly in anyway. You're not going to walk to the U.S.
Get over that wall. Don't worry about it.
You're going to be fine.
You're going to be great. But we look forward to whenever you're finally hanging out here long-term and permanent. And congratulations on that relationship. That's going to be wonderful. And, it's okay to feel that pain. I get it. It's not easy, but it's temporary. It will pass. It's just grieving. Call it what it is. And, just prepare yourself for what's ahead. Daydream. That's the best thing I can tell you to do is dream. That's what rescues you from it. Or go back to Nick's coping skills in the A block.
Hey.
Utilize any of those to mitigate the negative emotions.
All right, well, we're going to take a short break, and when we come back, we talk about when to disclose health issues to your employer. You're listening to Pod Therapy.
This week's Theraproducer sponsor is Kyla Lansbury. Kyla, born August 29, 1816, passing away June 8, 1899, often referred to as G.J.F. Bryant, was a Boston architect, builder, and industrial engineer. His designs dominated the profession of architecture in Boston and New England, spanning his career and after. His most notable designs are foundational buildings on numerous campuses across the northeastern United States, such as the campuses of Tufts College, Bates College, and Harvard College. He has been credited as one of the first modern architects of America, and at the height of his career was the most commissioned architect in New England, and the most commissioned in the history of the city of Boston. Excellent work, Kyla.
You're not even trying anymore.
Nope. Random article on Wikipedia. If you'd like to join the party to help make the show possible and tap into the special content for patrons only, you can go to www.patreon.com/therapy and sign up. Again, that's patreon.com/therapy. And if you are a Theraproducer and you'd like me to stop making up facts about your life, send me something to read. We're back. You're listening to Pod Therapy. Our next listener writes in about disclosing mental health issues to your employer.
Hey guys, on Friday night of Scoop Fest, I started getting a bad case of vertigo. Bad timing, right?
When I read that, I thought that's like the perfect sing-along. Like, on the first night of Scoop Fest, I got vertigo. That sounds about right.
Over the course of the next 3 months, I received many unusual and downright messed up causes for the vertigo, such as my chakras were out of alignment, and maybe I was not getting enough essential oils.
God, I hate essential oils. I am so over this scam.
But they're essential.
No,
it's right there in the name.
They are not.
Did you see the meme? There's this meme of these guys in war, and one of them was injured. He'd been shot, and there's another. Yeah, there's another medic, and we're like, hurry up, we need some more essential oils.
Yeah, I need some lavender.
Stat. All right, anyway, back to letter. Oh dear gods, help me. I'm polytheistic. 3 months of tests and meds to find out that even though I will be 40 in April, I have the back of a 55-year-old. I was diagnosed with cervical spinal stenosis and was dealing with painless migraines due to a pinched nerve in my neck. Although a great motivator for exercise, it's a bit scary to know that I may end up with a walker sooner rather than 20 plus years from now. Right now, I'm in physical therapy, and it's already releasing the pinched nerve, and I'm no longer dealing with the vertigo. We caught this very early, and I do count myself lucky. My job has been very understanding and more than once compromising, but one day I hope to move to a warmer climate. How do I approach a new employer about my stenosis, or my bipolar for that matter? I was open early on about my bipolar with this job, and it's been very helpful when I'm acting out of sorts and I don't notice it, but now I'm looking at needing physical accommodations. Not for a while, but it never hurts to have a game plan. Your friend from above, Frozen 49th Scoop.
Gosh, I think living in Alaska probably makes that even worse, right? If you're having arthritis or bone things or spinal things, cold is probably not your friend.
I would imagine, yeah.
Yeah. So this is a good question because, I mean, obviously this is talking a little bit about physical health. Mm-hmm. I want to point out two things about this question, though. Physical health is mental health. Mental health is physical health because they both affect each other so directly. If you are in chronic pain, if you are dealing with something that changes your physical abilities to perform or engage or have activity, that has an emotional effect, and oftentimes that is really the more dangerous thing.
Right, and it's also important to point out, going off of that when we do talk about pain, biologically, your brain does not distinguish the difference
No.
between emotional pain and physical pain.
Right. And so it's suffering either way. So first off, I just want to note that. But the real question here, and she points out that, hey, I live with bipolar, and I have revealed that. I've chosen to reveal that to my employer. She, in her particular case, does not regret that because she says, hey, that's turned out to be positive. They are considerate of me. They let me know if they notice anything, and that's been helpful to me. Which says a lot about your employer, to tell you the truth, because there's a lot of folks that I would not necessarily advocate for revealing that. I don't know. Listen, guys, one day Pod Therapy is going to be on every television and radio in America, and then we will destigmatize mental health. But until Nick and I conquer the airwaves, unfortunately, there's a lot of dummies out there that are going to judge you, right? And so, help us move the rock up the hill. But in the meantime, I don't advocate for that all the time because I don't trust other people to behave the way that they ought to in that situation. So she did it. It has turned out good. Now she's asking that follow-up question of like, do I also reveal a physical disability or what might become one?
Well, and yeah, I mean, in the current job, it sounds like maybe that's okay because she's already kind of got a track record with them.
Yeah.
One thing I would say, definitely don't admit to it or don't throw that out there in the very beginning.
Right.
Like when you're first applying for jobs, never ever give an employer a reason to not hire you.
Yeah.
And it would be illegal to not hire somebody.
But they'll never tell you that that's
exactly
what it was.
Yeah, and you can never prove that. So I mean, don't. And this is why I've always hated that question when you do the interview of like, what's one negative thing about yourself?
Right. Like, what am I? I have a heart murmur.
Yeah. What am I?
Like, I guess I'll let you know.
What do you say to that? I'm not gonna. Just never.
Everybody goes with the I'm a perfectionist thing.
Yeah, I know.
Yeah,
And it's
I
so
don't.
stupid.
I don't. I'm not trying to lie to anybody.
I work too hard.
Exactly. That's the go-to one. And you know what I've always said?
I care too much.
I care too much. It's like an interview on Tinder. What's your one weakness? I'm too good at sex. It's bad at this point. It hurts other people.
What I've always said with that
one. Hold on.
Your mic just died.
That was my fault.
Okay.
You've always said.
Yeah.
We actually keep you on mute the whole time, but you didn't know.
No,
I think that time you figured it out.
Maybe I should be listening to some of these episodes.
You should check out the episodes.
Yeah. But what I've always done with answering that question is I'll always say, well, sometimes I'm too analytical.
Okay.
For example, I know that I'm supposed to give you an answer to this, but I'm not going to because I don't understand. Like I'm not going to give you something negative about myself.
Right. You know what? I'm pretty honest. I think that when I've been interviewed, if they do ask that, I don't get that question a lot, but when I've been asked it, I say I'm a really good project starter, but not always a great finisher. And so I work best with people that don't mind kind of taking the task and finishing it so I can start another project. And, usually people are like, okay, like that's fine. Like, okay. So I'm a good door opener, right? Like I'm the guy who comes up with a great idea and starts it, but then I'll hand it off.
Yeah.
And that you should have other people on the team that are kind of managers of that.
I mean, either way, don't
hire Jim or Nick. I think
that's really what we're getting at.
Well, who wrote in again? Was it us?
What are we talking about?
Again? So don't reveal necessarily up front.
Yeah.
But now you're already with your employer. You've been with them for a while. They know you. Are you comfortable revealing this? Okay, I'm going to give you two answers to this, and we'll get Nick's thought. My first reaction is I'm comfortable with it, but here's what I want to challenge you on. When we get discouraging, scary life news, and it's emotional for us, a lot of us start vomiting at the mouth and telling other people too much too soon. Because our reaction to this is fear. And we almost feel like, oh my God, what's going to happen with my career? Oh my God, what's going to happen? Am I going to be, laid off? Oh my God, am I going to not be capable of doing this? And then we immediately feel like, okay, I'm going to go in there and talk to HR. Hold on. Stop. Don't sit on your hands. Mm-hmm. Don't do anything. Don't do anything. Stop right now. Tell your therapist all this. Don't tell anybody else. Tell your spouse. Tell your best friend. Don't let any of this out yet. I want that to mature. I want that thought to mature, to bear fruit. I want you to spend some time with it. And you know what? The truth might be you have a lot of what ifs right now.
Yep.
I don't think that's any of your employer's business.
Yeah.
If you think you might get pregnant in the next 3 years, you don't need to tell your employer that. It's their problem during like the end of the first trimester, then you tell somebody, right? So I kind of don't want you to have any reactionary communication that feels the need to confess these things before it's really a prescient issue. If you're sick, that matters to your employer that day. Telling them I might be sick during flu season is irrelevant until it happens. So don't reveal this, in my opinion, until it's time to reveal it.
I think the same thing. Don't make it a problem until it becomes one.
Yes.
Yeah. I mean, I wouldn't even give them a heads up yet. I mean, I would let's just ride this out, see what happens.
Yeah.
Because you don't want to make the mistake of preparing them for a problem that doesn't actually even occur.
Yes, and we don't know if it's temporary. Let's say that your physical therapist says, listen, for the next 2 months, I'm going to give you a walker. I'm scripting one for you. I want you to hold this for a while. And we're going to keep doing our work. Well, you come in with a walker, and they go, oh, my God, is everything okay? Yeah, I had this back thing. I'm working on it right now. They told me to walk with this for a while, take the pressure off. Even that is the present truth, okay? Yeah. I don't like, when it comes to talking to employers, I don't want you forecasting further than the weather. Okay, 10-day forecast is the max I want to hear from you. So you can tell them, yeah, you know what, next week, guys, just so you know, I have surgery on my knee. It's going to cause me to slow down a couple of paces, you might notice. Okay, that's a 10-day forecast. Right. Other than that, I don't think they need to know because, honestly, you don't know. So don't give them something to think about when you don't know the future yet. I kind of want you to stay in the now.
Agreed.
Yeah, as a general rule. Now, the bigger conversation about whether to share mental health, wait until we're on Ellen. Once we've been on Ellen a few times, had the chance to kind of let the world know, then it's safe to come out.
And for new employers, my advice would still be the same.
Yeah,
right.
It's not their business.
For future employers, yeah. And if I was starting a new job, what I would do is I would work really hard to establish myself right away as a hardworking, dedicated person. So then when some problems come up where I have to miss work because of medical issues, they're saying, well, Frozen 49th is a great worker.
Right.
We know she's dependable. So this happens. She needs to take a day off. Okay, that's fine.
That's really
You've
good
already
advice.
established your reputation. Right?
Alternate advice, do the exact opposite of that. So definitely come in and set that bar down low. Okay, I don't want them to have expectations like, Jim's really good at this. I want them to, God bless him, he's trying. He's really bad at this. That way, it's never this expectation. Also, first day of the job, you want to punch the biggest guy right in the nose.
That's prison.
Establish dominance. Oh, isn't that the same thing? Sorry, I was a high school teacher for a number of years, so a lot of that.
Oh, well, that does work in high school.
Back. But great question. Let us know how this develops. And one thing too, because you mentioned the physical side, do not lose sight of your emotional health and your mental health. Physical health affects those things. They are not in silos. So I want you to be paying attention to that because you're going to feel discouragement, you're going to feel anger, you're going to feel frustrated, you're going to feel hopeless sometimes. That is going to exacerbate some of these other things. And I just want you to make sure that you are attending to yourself. Your self-care is high because during this time of physical change, you're going to need to attend to your mental health too.
Mm-hmm. Very good. Thanks
Feel
for
better. Feel better. Stay warm up there in the frozen north. So, Nick, we have successfully budgeted enough time to do the end of the show. I'm excited for that. We have several things to do. Apologies. We need to do some feedback. We've got some letters from folks that are not asking questions but are commenting on some of our other episodes, a little bit of announcing, and then thanking our Patreons. But we'll start with apologies, if you don't mind.
Go for it.
A few things to do. First, I apologize to the Opening Arguments podcast for offering to be your drunken one-night stand to help you fall asleep at night. I should have more self-respect.
You should, but you don't.
Hey, they listen to the show. Thanks, guys. Thanks, Andrew and Thomas, for listening to the show and retweeting us and talking about us. We love you guys. Great show. If you don't already listen to it, Opening Arguments. It's like what we do, except lawyers. And they basically take questions and dive deep into lawyery stuff. So, great show. One of my favorites. I apologize to the state of Wyoming for threatening to relocate Trump's wall on your borders because a cat with bubonic plague was discovered inside of you. That was a bad idea. I'm sorry. We all know cats can climb walls, so it wouldn't have really helped anything. And lastly, I need to apologize to my wife, Janelle.
Finally.
Janelle, I'm sorry for offering without hesitation to marry recently divorced Amazon co-founder Mackenzie Bezos, who's worth $160 billion. I'm sorry that I didn't tell you sooner, because Mackenzie and I are in love, and as soon as she realizes that, I'll be moving out. Give my regards to the children.
If you guys ever did split up, this is how it would happen. It would happen on the show, I'm sure.
It would. Yeah, this is how she's going to find out is on Pod Therapy.
There's a cat with plague?
Yeah, bubonic plague. Yeah, in Wyoming. Don't go to Wyoming.
For the record, I don't care what kind of plague.
Yeah. I appreciate the nuance. Also, not necessary. You got me. You had me at plague.
I'm fine with plague.
You had me at plague. Don't even need more information.
You had me at cat.
Yeah, the cat will kill Nick. He has better odds of surviving the plague. They have cats in Wyoming? Cancel the airfare. Not going. All right, so I'll read our first letter here. We got some feedback, and we got one from Easy Whip, and he wrote the following. Greetings and salt porcutations, tenants of the churn. I don't enjoy every book suggested on your podcast. Good.
End of sentence.
End of sentence. Thanks for writing it. For example, I couldn't finish His Needs, Her Needs by Willard F. Harley. He relied too much on hypotheticals and anecdotes and had an obvious religious bias. True. However, in episode number 20, you sort of mentioned a book, This Is Your Brain on Music, but couldn't recall the author. I thought it would be a shame if my fellow THERAPALs and THERACurious, oh, that's a great word, THERACurious, didn't know more about this book. The book is written by neuroscientist Daniel J. Levitin, and it blew my mind. My first time consuming the book was an audiobook, and it was a delicious meta experience, learning about humans' relationships with sound through the same mechanisms being discussed. Anybody interested in music, language, sound, anthropology, neurology, anything ending in ology, will thoroughly enjoy this book. Your satanic, noisy upstairs THERAPOD Easy Whip.
I actually brought the book with me.
Oh wow! Yeah, he's holding it.
I don't know why, because no one can see it.
Yeah, well, I could see it.
I literally
can
do
vouch.
And yes, it is an amazing book.
Yeah, we'll take a selfie with you in it.
I already took a picture of it. Yeah, so I'll tweet
job.
it so you guys can check it out sometime.
Yeah, thanks for writing in, Easy.
Oh, and all right, so the next one we've got a message from The Verge.
You know what? I'll read this one too if you don't mind, since it's about kind of the segment. So this one's from The Verge, and he wrote this. It's amazing to hear you put words to the feeling I've had and could not recognize. I'm in the military, so weight is a pressure I deal with constantly. 236 in October, 251 today. Wow, way to go, man. 20 off. Their ideal for my height is 186. The description you gave to adult body identity really hit home with me. I've often said that I'm the happiest when I'm 255, and even though I've gotten down to 214 a couple of years ago, I was not happy. I think I should have been using the word uncomfortable. It makes sense that I learned to be comfortable as an adult about the same time as I was 255, so I put them together. When I'm down in weight, I don't feel as comfortable. I get to thinking of the way I'm eating and exercising as weird and reverting to my old ways. Thank you for this perspective, and I think it will help me accept the discomfort better, perhaps even toward adapting to my new body identity. Thanks a lot, The Verge. That was in reference to, I want to say, episode 53 or 54. We talked about weight image and weight identity, which was a really good one.
Yeah. And Froyo sent us a message. Guys, the men's health talk on episode 55 got too real. In 2018, I finally went to the dentist to fix 2 broken teeth 5 years after they had broken. One was a chipped molar that decayed last year. The other was a tooth I lost 33% of, so I chewed on the other side. 5 years.
Dude, I get it.
yeah, absolutely.
That is just like my story. Like, I have a cavity, so, I have 2 sides of the mouth for that reason, so whatever. So yeah, men, don't neglect your health. That's not masculine. It's not cool. It's not cowboyish. You're just an idiot. Go to the dentist, get things figured out, get healthy. Nick.
I know.
Yeah, me too. Hell. Jacob, what about you? You got any outstanding?
I'm so bad at this. Yeah, I'm terrible at this.
You've been putting things up. I had this bullet in my leg for like 3 years.
It took me years to finally just get a general practitioner.
Oh yeah, just to go to a doctor.
Yeah.
Right,
yeah.
and introduce yourself.
Right.
And he's like, can I do blood work? And you're like, wait, what's that?
Yeah.
You do blood?
I mean, like, really, like, I was 36, I think.
Yeah.
When I went to I went and had my first doctor visit since I was in a car wreck when I was 16 years old.
Wow.
I mean, that was for a car wreck. I was in the hospital.
Record.
and yeah.
Oh my God.
It was terrible.
So, memo to self.
Yeah.
Jacob does not follow up very well with medical. But shame on you, Jacob. Shame on all of us. That is not masculine. We are done.
Now I go regularly.
That a boy.
Yeah,
there it is.
I go probably about every 6 months.
There you.
And
That's
do blood
good.
work and
That's
just
what
get
you
checked
should
out.
do. So all male listeners, stop being stupid. Go to whoever does health for you: dentist, physical therapist, general practitioner, therapist. Go take care of yourself.
Okay, this
stupid.
week I'm going to get a general practitioner. I'm saying it right now.
Holding
Hold
it
me
on the
accountable.
air.
Okay.
You
Hold
got
me
bonus
accountable.
time. This thing don't air till Thursday.
Yeah.
So we'll give you a few free days.
Nice.
All right. Well, patrons, we want to thank our patrons who support our show at patreon.com/therapy. And Nick, why don't you start us off with the THERAPAL side?
We want to thank our newest THERAPAL to our team of mental health advocates. Thank you, Richard Bruins, for joining the party.
And at the beginning of every month, we thank all of our THERAPODs, but today we want to welcome our newest members of the sophisticated and dapper three-toed reptilian special forces of the Therapeutic Alliance. Welcome to Ellie O'Dare, Joseph Pangrazio, who, by the way, started off at 536. That was very generous, Joseph. And Betsy. We love you, Betsy.
And we want to give a special thank you to our bosses, the Elite Eight, the mysterious and shrouded Illuminati members of our fan club, the Theraproducers. Thank you, Smitty Scoop, Jake Schneider, Robert Brownie, Jr., Mint, Kyla, Lansbury, David, Data Scoop, Vialon, Judy Schneider, Chairman of the Board, Gray Whitaker, and Dr. Ben Don.
Dr. Ben has dirt on Nick Don, even though apparently he's taking a shot at me. Bring it, Ben. I ain't scared of you. If you'd like to hear this episode uncut and unedited and enjoy things like our book club when we get around to it and discussion groups, you can go to patreon.com/therapy and sign up. Don't forget also about our awesome Pinewood Derby that we will be doing in March. So if you want to be part of the Pod Therapy Pinewood Derby, you need to be a Patreon first, and you can read all the rules and specs, and you can let us know, and we'll give you a mailing address. You could send it over to us. It'll be a lot of fun.
Awesome.
That's all the time that we have for this week's session. We want to thank our landlords, the Ice Cream Social Podcast, and thanks to those of you who contributed to our show today. We really appreciate it. Remember, pod therapy isn't something you should keep all to yourself. Help us reach others by opening this episode's description in your podcast app and copying and pasting the link provided into your social media. Don't forget, you can find us at facebook.com/podtherapy, on Twitter at PodTherapyGuys, and now at patreon.com/therapy.
Do you want to submit your own questions to the show? Ask anonymously at www.podtherapy.net or email us at podtherapyguys@gmail.com. I'm Nick Tangeman.
I'm going to whoop Nick's ass in the Derby.
Whatever. Thanks.
I'm Grease Lightning.
We'll see you for your appointment next week. There's no way you're going to win.
Grease Lightning. That's what last year's car looked like. It looked like Grease Lightning. It was like
because
a black
that was the
muscle
kit
car.
that you bought.
Screw you! I don't know how to freaking whittle things out of beechwood.